This is the 4-icon challenge, narration game, or what you want to call it. It's about books, it's about games, and we're going to have lots of fun. And there's some people who are just getting up, and we hope you're waking up for a game. And it's going to be a little bit chatty because that's the way I am. This is the Adobe and Learning Man collaboration series. And let's just go on to this thing. We as humans, we like to tell stories, right? Any kind of stories. And if we go down to caves in La Croix, or whatever it's called, down in France, there's like 10,000-year-old pictures on the walls. And if we go down to Egypt and the hieroglyphs, we can see they're using symbols. And they're repeating these symbols again and again, so they probably mean something, but I have no idea what they mean. But we'll be using symbols to communicate. This picture's in there because I'm really, my biggest thing is I'm working a lot with typography and things like that. And we maybe don't even think of letters as symbols because they become so general. So this is, it's actually a bull because I couldn't find an ox on a royalty-free site. But if you look at the face here, you can see that this is basically an A, isn't it? It's sort of a head here, and it's got the horns coming up here. And that's actually where it comes from. It's Phoenician. It comes from the word aleph, which means ox in Phoenician, ancient stuff. But we still use it today. We use the symbol A, but we don't say A for ox. We say, I don't know, O for ox. Let's see if we can move to the next picture. This is called the 4-icon challenge. And an icon, it can be, today most of us would think of an icon maybe as this, which we see in the yellow here. It's sort of a symbol that is supposed to tell us what to do. We click on it. Here's going to give us a movie. This is going to open a document. This is going to take a picture. This is going to throw something away. I have a friend, he's an icon painter. He paints icons, and he says there's lots of rules about how to do an icon, and everything has a meaning, the way they hold the hands, the colors they choose, and the proportions they have. And it's basically a whole story all embedded in one picture. And that's sort of the Greek icon used throughout. Before there was general literacy, they used icons just to communicate the whole story of a saint or a happening, an event that they thought was important to remember. Now, we're going to do a little game. We're going to do lots of games today. And this is a bit like, I don't know if anybody knows voice stories cubes. I use them a lot, especially when I had like the first video sessions with students, because you sort of get this blank page syndrome. I'm supposed to do something creative and I can't think of anything to do. I don't know if you were stuck with that. Getting an assignment to be creative is very, very difficult. And so there's this series of dice. You can just throw them on the table, and then you find that there appears a lot of symbols. Now, if we look at these symbols, I'd like to have some suggestions. What do you think this symbol, do you see where I'm pointing at the one with the phone? There's sort of a phone die on there. Now, what could that icon, what could that mean if I'm going to tell a story using this as a symbol? Now, think Pictionary, think charades, think something like this. Could it be suggestions? I'm looking at the tag. Talk. It could be to talk to somebody, call somebody, communicating an important event. It could be a text. So it's quite ambiguous. You can use it for lots of different things depending on what story you want to have. The pyramid, what could we use a pyramid for? The pyramid is a symbol. If I'm looking for a symbol the one way, it could be a building, yeah, an engineer, a mystery, design. It's good. You got lots of ideas here, so you're going to do really well in this one. So we're going to do the reverse of this. We're going to go from the other way around, and sometimes that's more difficult. We're actually going to think of a book or a film, and we're going to try and pick out some symbols that will represent this. And let's see. This one also, don't forget to share your creative projects on the hashtag CreateEDU. Let's see, this is called Kyle Tezak's inspiration. So Kyle Tezak, who's he? He's a guy in Minneapolis, right? And he does a lot of stuff. He does actually a lot of icon sets for applications and websites and things. And if you look at his site, you can see there are some icon sets that he's actually trying to work on, all the icons looking the same. Lots of other things here. This is the Dribble site. Do you want to have that link? Can I share that somehow? How do I copy that one? Did you have that one, Melissa? Could you share it?
I can take care of that, yes.
Yeah. Oh, there I messed up. So we're going to do the same thing that he did. Wait, let's... this thing about where I'm supposed to put my window. So he did this thing called the 4-icon challenge. And what he did was basically distill a movie down to 4 icons. And I think we saw some of them down here. Let's see where we have them. They're way down here. Here, there's, is it a manga series, Akira? I know of it vaguely. And this is like the one series that he made into 4 icons. He did another one here, which was, let's see if we can find it here. Now these have cheat sheets as well, because they have, he's actually written what they are. Reservoir of Dogs and The Hobbit is his version, and Life Aquatic. So he's done 4 icons here, which are representing specific events that inspired to that movie or that film. And this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to think of a book or a film, or you could do a historic event, and we're going to distill that down into some icons. And we're going to learn a bit about Illustrator, how to do this. But I'm going to show you first a simple way, because we're talking about this sharing on the web with a CreateEDU hashtag. I just wanted to go, I know there's a session later on this week that you have about Adobe Spark, and you're going to see my Adobe Spark page. And of course, because I'm in Sweden, you see this is Spark in Swedish. There it says project is project in Swedish. So this was a project I did in Spark. And Spark is a really nice, easy app to have either on your phone or on your iPad or on your web browser. And you can brand it or whatever, and you can create a new post. And when you have a post, you can just click on a symbol that you already have, or if you want to add a new symbol, you can click the add button, and you can say, I want to add an icon. So here it says, I want to add, here it says soul. But if I click on this one, it says actually, I'll double click on it, then it says, I want to add an icon for a cat, and then I could choose another icon. Now I chose the one icon that matches the other ones quite well. Now I don't know if anybody of you know what book this is. If I show you these symbols here, do we have people who like fantasy? I'll give another hint if nobody's got it yet. If we talk about Terry Pratchett, do you know Terry Pratchett? He wrote a children's book that got a lot of things. It's called The Amazing Maurice. Yeah, that's right. Holly, you had it. Sorry, I sort of not patient enough here to let you come out with Maurice. It's a wonderful book. Just one warning: if you ever read The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, as the book is called, don't try and read it to your children aloud without having read it before, so you've let yourself laugh enough, because otherwise you'll interrupt the story, because you'll be giggling the whole time and they say, what did you read? What did you read? Could you read that again? Well, that was the one book that I thought I'm going to look at a little bit more closely in Illustrator. I have some other books, but I don't know if anybody can guess this one.
What is the boxing?
Do we have that one? Call of the Wild is very close. I was thinking of the book before Call of the Wild. White Fang is the one, and the reason I think of that one is it's the one I use when I'm teaching students about typesetting. I use that book. You can download it from gutenberg.org, and you can get the whole book down. It's on the public domain library. And so I read it about, what is it, 5-6 times a year. going through and formatting the text from that one. And I have another one. This one you should all be able to get. That's this one. Yes, exactly. So we have the answer there, Snow White, on this one. So what the challenge is, because there's supposed to be a challenge for you guys for some swag, and I haven't heard, Melissa, do you have clear what it was in the prizes? I know there was supposed to be some prizes for something.
Not right now. We'll figure that out.
Not yet. Okay, but for your if you're interested in entering the competition, is to create a post in a Spark post, and I'm not going to teach that, so that's even part of the competition to try and figure it out. But to make a book into 4 words, and then you can then add them as icons, and then you can post it with the CreateEDU hashtag. Okay, so that's the competition. And now I'm going to show you about Adobe Illustrator, because sometimes when we look at icons and so on, we don't get the icons exactly the way we want them. We maybe find an icon, but not the one we want. I actually tried this one. This one was my take on well, one book which starts with a knocking on a door and ends with an auction. But it's amazing what kind of icons you can find. So if I just double click on this one, I said I want to have an auction. Let's took it. If I put Sauron on this one, it will even find. Oh, I have to spell it correctly as well. You see, it even has these kinds of icons, so you could do almost any book, and it's almost ready to make. The only thing you had to have is a book, and then think about distilling into 4 simple words, and then you can search these icons. I want to also give you just this whole distilling process about how to take a book and take it down to 4 words. There's also a site called the Noun Project. I don't know if you know about that. And here's what I tried it before, and that's where it's actually pulling the icons that we use in when we're using Spark to make a post. So I can type any word I like. Give me 4 words that we can have for a book. You think about a book and give me a word, just a random word. Or give me a series of 4 words so we can get the book, and then we can just get this going, that we can guess each other's books as well. That would be even better. So there we have some different ones for that. Let's make a Spark one. Let's go back into the Spark, and I'll take this 4 icon challenge, and I'm going to take somebody's book here. So let's take this first icon here. Let's see, where did I go? It's not going back. No, I don't know where I lost that window. There it is. So we had Angel, Devil, Witch, and A World Divided. Okay, let's go with that one. Monica, you caught my eye here. So we'll go for this one, and I'll just double click on this one, and we'll put Angel here. Angel. And we'll see what kind of angel we want. I'm thinking that's going to be a too childish one, so let's go with more symbolic, maybe just the wings like this one. I like that one as an icon. And here's also the difficult part about an icon. How simple do we want it so that it doesn't get a realistic picture? We want it to be a symbolic picture so that it leaves room for the imagination. Then we wanted a devil as well. So we'll click on the ring here, and we'll have a devil here. And we'll see what turns up. Oops, there. And I don't know how evil we want this one to be. Maybe we'll just go with a symbolic one of this one. And then we had a witch and a world delivered as well. So I'll click on that one, and also now I'm always nervous about spelling the word witch here. So see, did I get that right? Witch. We did find a witch, and sometimes when you double click it just adds an extra icon there, but that's fine. We can delete them as well. And then the final word was world divide. That's going to be a tricky one, isn't it? So I'm going to look for a world here and see if we can find a world. The divided part is going to be a tricky one, and that is actually perfect for what I wanted to do. So I'm going to take this symbolic world map here, and I'm seeing I can find icons that fit most of the things in Adobe Spark, but I'm not going to find a world divided, or I'm not going to look for a world divided, but I'm going to actually export my 4-icon challenge to a PDF file. This is something new for Spark. So if I go from the download file, it would be in English. Here it says hämta, which is Swedish. So you get some linguistic lessons here as well. And I'll download the PDF file, and I'll start the download of this one. And it's going to save it down to my downloads folder. And as I do that, I'm going to switch out of my presentation. Did I miss something here? Just checking that I didn't miss anything. Oh, I'll skip that one. It was just some pictures here that were in on the slide deck that I had, and I said I wanted to leave that in because even looking at a picture, any picture can actually start a story. So let's go to Illustrator. Here you see my Illustrator file that I did when I was doing some process, because I wanted to show you some of my process. Illustrator, when it starts up, looks like this. And what is very nice to know about any Adobe software is there is a Learn tab. So you can always go into the Learn tab, and there is tutorials there. So if I miss anything, I know you're in safe hands because there is learning resources already built into the software. But that means I can go a little bit off the track and have some fun and show you some of the special effects that I'm using here. So I'm going to go back with this arrow here to go back to my new document. So this was my process when I was doing my 4-icon challenge. And this was my amazing Maurice. I wanted a cat, and I wanted some rats, and I wanted a pipe. And this was my Rat King that I started with the first. But then I thought that's going to be too much of a spoiler, and so I tried to distill that down to a crown to represent the king instead, because you don't want to get too detailed with the icons because they're going to be sort of spoilers. The other thing I did was, it's about some talking rodents, and I thought, well, that's actually 2 different icons. So I skipped the one icon and took the rat as one icon and the speech bubble as a second icon. So that was in my process, so you can see a little bit part of that. But let's look at this broken world that we had. So I'm going to go to File, Open. And from my Downloads folder, I have the 4-icon challenge that we just made from Adobe Spark. And here we see the challenge. Now, there is one thing that Illustrator does which I don't like, and that is it sort of messes up the text that you get from Adobe Spark. But sometimes that happens when you transfer from one program to another, and I'm not going to get too bogged down in that. So here we had the angel, we had the demon or the devil, and then we had the broken world. And this world isn't broken, so we need to break this world up. And the way I'm going to break this world up is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to make a second copy of it. And I can do that by edit, copy, and edit, paste, and that gives me 2 copies of the world. Okay? And now I want to break this apart, and I'm going to use one of the basic tools that we have in Adobe Illustrator, which is a pen tool, and it's basically join the dots. And when I start taking the pen tool and I move over the worksheet, you can see it has a little star next to the pen, and that means it's going to make something new. The star is like something new is going to happen. And I'll just click like join the dots. I click on a point, I'll click on a second point, and I'll click on a third point. And I'm just making this zigzaggy shape, and I'm making it like that. So now I have a shape, and just so that you will see it better, I'm going to change the fill color And now I can't see any colors here, but I can go into some sliders and I can grab any color I like. So that green shape here is going to cut away part of this world. And I'm going to make a copy of this one. And the way I make a copy in Illustrator is I hold down the Option key, and you see my arrow now changes to a double key. And I can make a copy of this one down on the other part of the world. So now I have two shapes that look the same. The first part of the world, I want to keep the part of the world that's underneath the green shape. So I'm going to choose the world and the green shape. And I'm going to go into my properties panel, and now I have lots of icons here from Zoom. So I'm having a little bit trouble finding my properties. So I'm going to drag them over there. I hope that's okay. And there's something called a pathfinder. Pathfinder means it's going to do some calculations and see, I have one shape underneath and one shape above, and I'm going to decide which ones I want to keep. And I want to keep the shapes that are intersecting. So where the green and the world is intersecting, I will keep. And that gives me the one half of the world. And then I'm going to take the other half of the world, and I say I want to cut away the shape in front, and that gives me the second world. And now I have these two halves that fit together and that they are broken. And I just want to change the color here. Now, if I look at my colors, I'm not seeing the colors here, but it's very easy to add a color in Illustrator. I'll just take this color here. I'll click on the fill swatch and I'll just put the plus button, and now it adds it to my library. So I have this color to use, and I can reuse this for the second half. So this will now be my red color. And now I have my 4 icons that are there. Okay? And I don't know the book. Maybe you figured out the book by now. But it's not a word. Angels and devils and witches and the world divided. Anybody? Nobody knows that book? Nobody knows Monica's book? Did I do the icons wrong?
It's supposed to be the end of the world diverted, but the
Okay.
the divided world is still a good metaphor for it as well.
Okay. So sometimes knowing the book that you're doing makes it easier to design the icon so that you can find the appropriate icon, or maybe even the appropriate style of icon that you want. I mean, if I wanted to make these a little bit more scribbled or something else, I could actually go in and choose all these icons that we have here in Illustrator, and there's a lot of effects I can wrap on them as well. But I don't think that will really help if I go in here and scribble these ones. But let me do a roughen here, so I'll sort of make these really, really distorted, right? But that didn't help this one, did it? It didn't make it any clearer. Okay. Let's leave that one. I wanted to go back to the process when I don't have an icon, and I wanted to show some tools in Illustrator. So that was the book project and how you could do that. And when I chose this process sheet, I actually chose this one to show a few features and how I'm using when I'm making my own icons. Let's zoom in on this cat here. This was my first reference from the cat. This cat, when I made it, it's basically just a lot of circles. And when I take a circle and draw a circle like this, I can say, it looks a bit like a cat, doesn't it? I have grandchildren as well. You wouldn't have guessed, would you? So I do a lot of cat drawings as well. So I have this cat here, and really looking at the muzzle, I can see that it's basically 3 circles down there at the bottom. So I can just basically make a circle. And in Illustrator, using the Option key, I'm just basically dragging it to make a second circle, and then dragging it to make a third circle like so. And if I take those 2 circles and put them on top, Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, and then we fill all these ones with maybe color, we can see that we have a bit of a cat mouth there. For the ears, it's also basically a circle. And there's two selection tools in Illustrator. There's a black tool and a white tool. The black tool is for selecting big shapes, and the white tool is for selecting anchors. And if I click on a point, it will select that as an anchor, and then there's two handles here, and those two handles are what describe how narrow that circle will be. But if I just click and drag that one up, I'll drag that one down, and I'll click on this segment between the 2 points, and I'll use my right arrow here, and I'll click on that point, and I'll use my left arrow. We see that pretty soon it's easy to get a cat's ear, and I'm always getting these small hints of how I can actually create the different shapes. So there we have a cat's ear, and I'll take another one here and I'll put that on the other side. And depending on how symbolic I want to be, I can decide, do I want this to be really symmetry or not. For the cat's eyes, basically, again, just a circle. And I can click and drag on the side here to make it a bit slanted, and I'll drag on the other side to make that a bit slanted. And we'll take another circle, like an ellipse, and we'll fill that one with black instead. And I can take the stroke and take that away. So there I have an eye. And if I take this one a little bit smaller, I'll group it. Command G is to group it, and then I can use that one again. I can either flip it by using the transform, I can just drag the one side, and there we sort of have the beginnings of a cat's face. If I want to combine the shapes, like here I have the ears, and I want to combine this with the other shape, I can just drag to select a number of shapes, and then there's this tool which looks like two circles with an arrow on it. And I don't know if you know the story of Barber. It's a comic they have in Scandinavia. It's about these amoeba-like creatures that can take any shape. And I call this the Barber tool, because when I take this one, I can just click and I can drag over a number of shapes, and all the shapes that become shaded will join. And that sort of makes the whole into one. Let's put that one on the back. Object, arrange, send to back. So there we have a cat. This time it looks a bit more like a panther. Now, Maurice, the amazing Maurice, for those who know the story, he is a streetwise cat, and this is just too smooth for him. So what I did to get the more organic feel of Maurice was that I wanted to select the contour back here. So I took just a direct selection, and I selected a number of points. So I choose the one point, shift click the next, and shift click the third, and now I have selected the lower part of the head. And I'll copy this one, and using paste in place, it will make the copy that is exactly on the same place as the previous one. I'm going to change the color of this just so you can see it better. So here we have the second part of the cat. And this part I want to be a little bit more rough. And what I love about Illustrator is that I can be very, very precise, saying exactly where I want to point, and I can move these points as I want, and then I can be totally random. And there are some things here called effects, and choosing distort and transform, roughen. I can roughen him up if I don't like the way he's roughened. There is window. Oh, now I got into zoom instead. Oops. Window appearance. And this is the way that Illustrator works. Illustrator is a vector program. It means it's drawing with mathematical curves. And these mathematical curves then have some kind of a clothes, and the clothes are their appearance. So if I want to see the naked lines that I'm drawing in Illustrator, I'll go in and I will choose to show my outline mode. And these are the maths that I've done, but this is the naked maths. Here we find the math that is clothed in different kinds of appearances. And this appearance, this stroke, I wanted to give an effect. So I could do the effects from the slides here, or I could go down and I could choose distort and transform. And from the transform, I'll choose my roughen. Oh, why is it just showing me the roughen straight off? I'm supposed to see, there it is. Sorry, it's my dialog because I changed the size of my screen. My dialog boxes with the interface was going way out the corner and I wasn't seeing it. So when I choose to roughen something, I can do so relative, which means it'll make it, a small object will be a little bit rough and a big object will be a lot rough. And I can choose the amount of detail. And this means I can make things like fur. It means I can make them very small, or I can make them very spiky. And this, of course, would be a real hassle for me to do by join the dots, I'll go crazy going in and out trying to make some rough surfaces. But here in Illustrator, I can both draw very smooth mathematical lines, and I can give them an appearance of a fur coat. And we'll put that one as my lines. So let's take this stroke here. I'll take away the color of the stroke, and we'll put this one on back, object, arrange, send to back. And there we have a cat, a bit rougher than it was before. Maybe I need to add some more stroke to that outer one. And we'll add some thickness to that stroke as well. And you can see we've got a rough cat. The mouse that I was doing, these images, by the way I got these images was basically, I can go on here, if I look on the Finder here, I can go to Adobe Stock, or I can just Google something, and I can just say, I want some mice, and I found a mouse picture. So I just went in like this on a browser, and I say, sorry, rats. They're rats, they're not mice. So I went down to find some rats, and I went on to images like this. And at this point, I'm not looking at something that I'm going to use. I'm just using as a reference that I want. So I could just take this image and I can just drag it into Illustrator and drop it there. Oops. And there we have that image straight into Illustrator. If I want to, I can even go in. Let's see if I can do Illustrator. Let's reset my workspace. This is great for me as I mess my workspace up the whole time. If I have an image selected, there are some things here like image trays which say, I want to make this into a silhouette. Ta-da! It's made it into a silhouette. Or I can say, I want it as 3-color artwork, and it gives me that. Or if I want more control, I can go in and there's actually a dialog box here. So I go to the silhouettes, and then I take this one and I'll refine. Do I want more of the background or more of the rat? And I see, however I'm doing this, it's still not turning out the way I want to. Because images are fine. It's nice that I can trace them, but sometimes it just won't work. So let's skip this one. I'll undo those ones. So if I say this is my reference for my rat, what I have to do is try and break this down into some simple geometric forms. And I could go again and say, oh, this is a circle. This is almost a circle, and then I can manipulate it. Or I could use what's called the pen tool. And I don't have to do it all in one go. I can do this in lots of little goes. So this is an ear, and basically like join the dots. Where would it have been if it was join the dots? I'll click on one place, click and drag. And the key here when I'm clicking and dragging, I'll let go of that one, is that I'm looking at the point coming in. I'm looking at this curve when I'm dragging. I'm not looking at where the mouse cursor is. I know where the mouse cursor is. That was a bad pun. So there is the shape of the ear. And if I want to make the next one, I'll press escape, and I can make the next ear on here because I know that later I can join these shapes into one big shape. And then I want the body shape. And I can just click here and follow this one. And if I like, I can actually just do a very rough scale like this and say, okay, now I want to make this curved. And there's a special kind of pen here in Illustrator, which lets me sort of drag out these borders, which makes it a lot easier. So if I feel uncomfortable about knowing how to click and drag, there's different drawing tools in Illustrator to make shapes. There's even a pencil. So if I want to draw these feet and I find, oh, I'm not going to do this with a pen. And if I'm steady on my hand with a mouse, I can actually just draw the rat's foot with a mouse. Yeah, this is getting bad. But if I want to, like the tail is going to be a tricky one, isn't it? I want to make a tail, and if I'm going to draw this tail and try and trace the one side and the other side, it just looks ugly. It's going to look plain, simple, ugly. So I don't want to do that at all. What I'm going to do instead is I'll take the pencil here, and I'm just going to draw one center line for the tail, like so. And I'm going to say, I don't want to fill this tail. I want this to be a stroked tail. And I didn't select it, so I got to go back to my black selection tool. There. This dash means no fill. And then I go into the stroke and I say I want a stroke. And if I look at the properties panel here on the stroke, I can make the tail thicker. It's not really looking like a rat's tail. But if I click the word, and there's lots of different words in Illustrator where you can click. You click on the word here, and I want it to be a rounded point. And if I go down to the bottom here, it's possible to give it a tapered look. Oh, it's blobby at the end. Well, that's fine because there's another symbol here to flip it. And that gives me my rat's tail. And now I can change the size of the tail. And it's going to be like these tails are going to be parallel. So now I can wiggle the tail here, and it's going to look really, really good any way I do it. So there's plenty of tools here. And even if I want to change the width of the tool, because I don't like the way it goes narrow at the end, there's a tool here called the width tool. And by double clicking a point, I can say, now it turned up on my second monitor, I can say how wide do I want the tail to be at that point. So I'll make the tail like so. Okay, so there's the simple tools, and this whole thing of taking a story and narrowing it down to a couple of icons or 4 icons is basically the whole thing about Illustrator to get into Illustrator. We take an image and we break it down into some simple geometric shapes and see basically a cat's made out of circles, or we can see that a rat is made out of a circle and a drawn squiggle and a line which is given a thickness. And then there are, of course, ways which we can use the computer to do what the computer is good at, repeating things. So if we see this one, this is a rat king. It's part of the story. I'm not going to say more than that. But basically, I just drew one of these rats. And as I go into my outline mode, Command Y, the easy way to remember that is if Illustrator isn't behaving the way you like, and you want to know why, press Command Y. And that will show you why what Illustrator is working with. And I can see this has just got the one rat. But if I click on this one here, and my one tip to you, which you might find sometime along the road when you're learning Illustrator, is you want to find out about this thing called appearance. It's what is making this object look like it does. So I have the one group here, and if I look on this panel called Appearance, Window, Appearance, you can see that this group has an effect called Transform. And if I click on this Transform window, it says this one is going to make 7 copies from the lowest point of this one, and it's going to offset them by 71.53 degrees. How on earth did I get 51.43 degrees? Well, basically I took 360, which is a circle, and I divided that one by 7. So Illustrator can do a lot of maths as well. That's great to know. And then I pressed OK on that one. And what it gave me was 7 mice. And if I then want to take this and start editing the points individually, I can choose to Object, Expand Appearance. And when I do that, you see I get all these little points that I had before, which are the same kind of points that I had from a circle. With a white anchor, I could edit them. And that is the same thing here. All these points here can be edited as much as I wanted to give each of these a unique appearance.
Lucas, you have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm basically rounded off from where I wanted to do. And now if I was going to go in to have some question and answers, what I wanted to show you here was basically the process of basically using references from the internet. And my big advice when you're using references from the internet is never copy one image. Don't trace one image, but have lots of different references, because then you're not being plagiarizing something, but you're getting inspiration from the different ones. So if you want to draw a dragon and you don't want to use an exact copy, find a sculpture, draw a wing from there, draw a face from somewhere else, and then combine it and be creative, truly creative. So let's see if there are any questions that are there. There was a question if I'm using a Mac. Yes, I'm using a Mac, but it wouldn't make a difference if I'm using a Mac or a PC in this case, either for Adobe Spark or for Illustrator. Illustrator at the moment is on a public beta for tablet devices. So I think you can still apply via Adobe site if you want to try, because Adobe Illustrator will be available for the iPad in the coming time, but it will not be fully with all the special effects and everything that we can do. Any more questions? I mean, I could go on and do a rat or a mouse or something else, or draw. I mean, basically with Adobe Illustrator, it's out of the box. It's a tool. My experience is it's a very steep learning curve to start off with, and it can be intimidating because you say, I mean, when I take students and we take the first day and basically we've drawn a car which is just like circles and squares, and we felt, oh, I was going to be creative, and we get a bit disappointed because we want to do so much. But then in the end, when you see what you can do with the software, it's pretty amazing. And I use it for even like doing figure drawing in Illustrator or drawing illustrations. At the moment, I'm actually working on a reprint of a book that I did some years ago. I just to show you some of what you can do with Illustrator. Let's look at some links here. This was not in my in my plan thing, but this is it's about how to keep horses, and here Illustrator does excel, being able to be used for drawing all kinds of things. And we do have transparency, and we have a precision to be able to draw this kind of images as well. But if I look at this one here, I can say, because I drew this horse, I know it's exactly the same way that I did with a cat to start off with. I've started by drawing, if I press Command Y, you can see it's just basically lines here. And if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see that these lines here, as I select them, are just a series of points, and I can move these points and I can change the shape of them. One word of advice: if you do find the pen tool intimidating, do try the curvature tool. It's a really nice tool. I mean, if you want to make a shape like a heart, you say, oh, it's really, really tricky to make a heart. Well, I can make a circle, can't I? So I can take a circle and I can make a second circle. That's two circles that are the same size. And using the combine tool, I'll join these. If I take this point and I'll just take it down, and I'm holding shift to constrain it to the vertical. That's sort of a heart shape, isn't it? But if I take this one and I'll make it into a square point, actually I'll take that one away. So I'm selecting this point with the marking tool, and then I'll say this point and this point I want to join, Command J. I'll take away that one, and I'll say, okay, these 2 points I want to join, Command J. That's sort of a heart shape. And now I can drag either with the path tool. Let's just do this. I'll just take those two and I'll say these ones I want to be soft. And there we have the beginnings of a heart shape. If I want to, another thing that people have problem with is doing things symmetrical, and you'll get a little bit of an Illustrator trick here. If I want to scale something, like I want to make this one deeper, or I want to keep these two symmetrical, if I select 2 points like this, I can use the scale tool, which will always work from the center, and I can scale these out. And that's also another way to sort of mirror a shape to make it, how do you say, symmetrical. So there's lots of ways to draw with Illustrator, and basically anything you can draw with Illustrator. Another person that I admire, just to show you the extremes of what you can do. I didn't save that as a link, but let me find him. Well, you can find lots of Illustrator. There's a guy who does. Oh, what's his name? This is the guy I was looking for, but I can't hear. Orlando Arciana. He works with Illustrator a lot, doing vector art like this. So this is also Illustrator. So it goes all the extreme from doing simple icons that can be part of a web interface or part of a game to doing fully fledged illustrations, which are rich in both tones and transparencies and very painterly. Okay. That's what I had. We could, of course, do more books. We could play more games, but I don't know if you have to have a break before you have your next session. Is the next session in this channel as well, Melissa?
Yeah, so my next Adobe session is also in this channel, and it'll be fun. So, I mean, come back, stick around.
Well, and can you give us the gist of the theme of that one? Or maybe
I mean,
I
don't want to, like, ruin it.
You don't want to spoil it.
It's like all about Shakespeare, and there's a kind of a surprise, so it's kind of cool. Our presenter is looking very Shakespearean.
Very Shakespearean, so it's going to be a bit. It's probably going to be guts and daggers and fee fi fo fum and whatever.
I mean, let's not get carried away now, but it will be great. But Lukas, this was great. Thank you. I used to teach at a university, and I used to do this for Icon Challenge with students. I used to group them into little groups and say, you know, pick a book, pick a movie, something, and we turned it into a really fun game. So yeah, it's awesome. That's all I have to say. So Lukas, if you're good, I think Caitlin, we're awesome.
Yeah, those are the ones I was showing the picture from before. That's also like if you got get into sort of it can be done with any creative challenge. If you sort of have to do something and you're sort of out of ideas, these are a great tool as well, which I just like to throw in there on the storyboard thing. Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
And if there are any questions that turn out, you'll probably find me on the internet. You're welcome to contact me if you get stuck.